Well, today we start our new November series. And our series this month is going to be on transforming grief and loss. Oftentimes we have situations in our lives, some are obvious, right? Maybe the death of a loved one. But other grievances or losses are less thought of as needing a process and needing time. Maybe you lost a job. Maybe you lost a relationship. Maybe you're in a process of loss with your bodies. Something is happening within your body that you're feeling a sense of grief or loss. And so this month we're going to be exploring through the various weeks that theme. How do we take all of these things that are happening to us? How do we acknowledge first that they're happening and allow a space for that grief and that loss, and then moving to transform it, to make it something that is not detrimental to our lives, but becomes this catalyst for change, this way to truly engage our power and to truly become close to spirit, within spirit, as spirit. Now today, we get to play with that, with this concept of Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. And it's pretty obvious, right? Day of the Dead is a time where we're honoring those that have passed. And that includes also our furry pals that have passed as well. It's a time where we can look at the tradition of Dia de los Muertos and explore how that tradition, how that spiritual framework might allow for us to move through grief in our lives about those that we have lost. But more than that, I want to suggest to you and invite you all to think about how Dia de los Muertos can actually be a way to be able to create a moment, a space within you and among us to be able to have a deep and profound healing. Not just honoring our ancestors, but what in doing that, how that opens up our heart and opens us up to a potentiality that we may have never even considered. My journey with Day of the Dead began probably about 10 years ago. Now, I do come from Mexican ancestry, but we didn't celebrate Dia de los Muertos growing up. Dia de los Muertos was oftentimes for many, many years really just in the south of Mexico or with indigenous cultures that they maintained that. And then throughout the years, it became more popularized. It became more throughout Mexico. And so that's why you see it. And now, it's come to the U.S. and it's become a very popular thing. And no, it is not Mexican Halloween, y'all. So make sure you tell people that is not what it is. So my journey began, about 10 years ago. My grandmother had passed in 2002. And my grandmother was the matriarch of the family. She was a larger-than-life figure for all of the family, and certainly for myself. Somebody that was my guide and my protector, the love of my life, and the person that really introduced me to spirituality. She was very deep in her spirituality, praying the rosary every day, all day. She prayed it more than she ate or probably thought. It was just this thing that she did. And so when she passed, there was a huge chasm in my life and in my heart. And I realized that she died Christmas Day, and so every year around the holidays, it was just excruciating. And so I loved the holidays. It was my favorite time of the year. For many of us, it is, right? But Christmas and even leading up to Thanksgiving became excruciatingly painful, thinking that she was no longer there, that we would not celebrate together. And there was that sense that I was not whole. One day, we started approaching Dia de los Muertos, and I started to hear about it. I kind of really resonate with it more. Not that I didn't know what it was, but something about it called to me that particular year. And just the idea came to me, you know what, I'm going to celebrate it this year. Why not? I'm of Mexican descent. I should be able to do this, right? I'll figure this out. And so I read up on it, created an event at my house, invited people to bring their loved ones. We did an altar. People came, and it became this thing that was so magical and so mystical when we did it as a community. And then we just started doing it every year. It was a thing at my house, and more people came. There were people that were left afterwards, pictures are left. There was like Vietnamese people. No, Vietnamese people were at my house. I'm like, who are these people on my altar, So it was an interesting experience to have all of these glorious energies that were part of this from year to year. So for me, it became a way that I was unable to process grief, because I had spent the first 10 years after her death just in a way that I couldn't function sometimes, especially around the holidays. And so for me, it became a way that I could actually process that grief and move from it being something that was, sad and tragic to something that was celebratory and joyous. And that is the beauty of what happens with Dia de los Muertos. So what is it, for those of you who may not know? Yes, it's about honoring your ancestors, but it comes from indigenous traditions in Mexico. Now, I want everyone to understand, most cultures have these kinds of ceremonies. It is not unique, really, to Mexico and to the indigenous people, particularly the Aztecs, right? So it's not. Everyone around the world has ways in which they do this. Oftentimes we have forgotten the importance of having these kinds of rituals and moments. And so it started, many, many years ago in the Aztec tradition we know about. We celebrated November 1st and 2nd. November 1st is the time for children, and November 2nd is really the time for all of the souls that we're celebrating. But initially it really wasn't celebrated in November. It was celebrated, from what historians believe, in August. It was actually a 40-day celebration that started with a commemoration of all of the harvest, all of the things that were grown and planted, and then harvesting and being able to be grateful for all of this bounty that they had. Now, with Christianity and with Catholicism, they transferred those dates to be in alignment with All Saints and All Souls Day. And so that's why you have that pairing. But in reality, it wasn't celebrated at this time, but we do now. What is it ultimately? It's a time for us to realize that we can celebrate not just the passing of a loved one, but celebrate our own lives. When we think about death, we are called to think about our own lives. How are we spending our lives? How are we engaging our life? How are we grateful for our lives and living? And so it calls us to sort of think about that as individuals and as a community. What does that mean? In addition, it calls the question on, what is death? Most of us fear death. That's the reality, right? Yes? No? Am I the only one? Most of us do, because culturally we have been inculcated with that, to fear it. But these kinds of traditions open us up to a space in which we can understand that we don't have to fear death, that death is really only a transition. It's something, a transition, that love never dies and that spirit never dies. It reminds us of this, that we are just in a circle of life, right? Birth, and then we bloom, and then there's a decay, and then there's a death, and then the cycle begins again. Nothing is ever lost. Everything is inextricably tied. When we think about that, then we have our altar, and that's kind of where we have this moment to celebrate, to visually see what this looks like. And it creates this space and this opening to be able to recognize our ancestors and literally call them in. And we're calling them in a way to be able to gain wisdom, to remember the past, to remember what was lost, but also at times to remember things to transform them. Some of us have had fractured relationships with our loved ones. Maybe our father or mother has passed, and it was you didn't talk to them for years before they went, or there were things that were said before their death that you regret, or things that you wanted to have said or you didn't say. All of these things are usually part of the human experience. And then when that happens, there's a lot of angst, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of regret, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of hurt around these things. And so when we can start to open up a space that we think, well, spirit never dies, how could we still be able to have that rectification, that restitution, say those things, have that healing, have that moving on, even when the person is not physically here? This stuff, good people, is not just kind of woo-woo spirituality. Let's think about science. Do I have any scientists in the house? People who love, science. Think about what is the first law of thermodynamics or the law of conservation? Energy never dies. There is no new energy. There is no loss of energy. Energy is only transformed. It's like all of the elements. I think about it today, even as I was thinking about the opening of the ceremony with the elements. That is also the reminder for us. There's this other idea, this other feeling that came to me about the elements, because it's a reminder of our own essence, of our own transformations, of our own eternal existence. Think about water, for example, right? We have water, and water may evaporate, but what happens? It goes up into the atmosphere. They become droplets. Those droplets collect, and they form clouds. And when the clouds are oversaturated, then we get what? Rain. We are energy. We are energy just like the elements. And so if we think about that, I know that's hard for our rational, logical, Western, modern mind to grasp. But the truth is that we are just energy. And so by extension then, like every other element, we don't die. We just transform. Y'all still with me? Believe nothing I say. Believe everything I say. Take what you can, but be open to what can be. So this is what we're talking about here today. Let's think about it from our own tradition. We have as our master teacher in unity, Jesus. What was Jesus's ultimate gift to us when we think about the crucifixion and the what? Resurrection. Jesus was resurrected as a reminder to us again that nothing dissipates. There is always that transformation. There's a death and there's always new life, both literally and metaphysically, meaning that it's, that way, and that we think about what's beyond the material realm. That was something that was within even the Bible in the New Testament when we think about Jesus' journey, the message that was brought to us, eternal life, the idea of eternal life. If we look at those phrasings in the Bible, the idea of the spring of life, the water of life, all of this is encoded in our own tradition. And those of you who said you saw Coco, the movie Coco, and one of the beautiful things for me in the movie that I think is not so obvious is the fact that it's not just about teaching us in the movie about Day of the Dead. Yes, it's a Disney movie, but they did a beautiful job. And it's not just about teaching us about what this means. The story, I won't tell you a lot, but the story is about this young boy who wants to play music, and his family does not want to have anything to do with music. They believe that it's a curse. It was a curse on their family, that it was a horrible thing, right? So he goes through this whole hero's journey to be able to have a way in which he resurrects the past. So it's not just about honoring the ancestors that he did in the movie. Literally, the movie, even though it's a cartoon, shows us an animation how we can go into the past to change the present and maybe even change the future. When he goes back and he learns and he engages all of this past, he moves into a space when the movie ends where he's holding his little newborn sister and the movie closes at that moment. It's this idea that we can actually open up this portal when we honor our ancestors to also do ancestral healing. It sounds, again, for our logical, rational mind an impossibility, but what if? What if we began this sacred journey knowing and affirming that when we honor our ancestors, when we open up that sacred space, when we open up that portal, we can also heal the past? There's traditions that believe that by healing the past, we not only heal ourselves, we heal future generations to come. So I want to invite us into a space today. I'm going to take this into a little brief meditation to open us up a little bit more. So I just invite you all to just close your eyes. And if that seems uncomfortable to you, close them anyway. I invite you to be curious in this moment, to open up yourself to what could be, to open up yourself to this idea that maybe I don't know everything that I think I know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe what I've been told is not full and complete. Maybe there's something within me that is wanting to surface and wanting to give birth to here, today, and even in this here and now. So take some beautiful, deep cleansing breaths. Relax into your chair and just open up your mind to be curious. Open up your mind to just give and receive. Open up your mind to that cosmic Christ, to that divine knowing, to that eternal knowing and oneness. And open up your heart. Know that you are safe here, that it is safe for you to open, that it is safe for you to feel, that it is safe for you to connect, that it is safe for you to be in community, that it is safe for you to know the truth of who you are. And we open up that core, that second brain, that space of creation, that womb space of creativity, and also of courage, to be courageous and brave, to move into something new. And as we open, we allow for this idea of our ancestors to come to mind. I invite you to think and feel into your loved ones that have journeyed on. Maybe it's your mother or your father or your sister, your grandmother, your grandfather, your son, your daughter, uncle, aunt, beautiful doggy, kitty, coworker, a friend. Allow them to come into your mind and into your heart. And allow those beautiful souls to just settle into that heart space for just a second. And allow yourself in this moment of openness and courage to feel what you need to feel around that. Just allow that to rest for a second. And as you allow for that, I invite you to take all of those feelings. Some of them might be hurtful, and some of them might be joyous, and some of them might be complicated. But take all of those feelings and allow them to be transformed here and now. Allow them to be something that becomes the catalyst to your greatness. And as you think about your ancestors, as you think about your lineage, allow yourself to know what might be resurrected from teachings. What might be there for you that you've lost that you need to connect with? Or what might be there for you that in the rubble you can still say, I can hold on to this one thing that my father gave to me? And then what might you let go? What things are you bringing from the past, from your ancestry that are no longer serving you, that you can say, I'm done with that. I'm done with that fear. I'm done with that anxiety. I'm done with that preoccupation. I am done with this idea of who I'm supposed to be because I see and know and feel the truth. What must you let go of so that you can be in your true self? And then finally, what might you find in all of this journey that you can recycle or repurpose? Something that was complicated or meant for a downfall or something bad or something hurtful that you can transform in some way, shape, or form to be something that you offer yourself or the world for good. And we give thanks today for our ancestors, for all of the complexities of life, knowing and affirming that we are one, that love never fails and that love never dies. Take a deep breath. Open your eyes. And I invite you, if you have your little paper, you've got a little skull in front of you, you've got a candle, you've got a pen or writing utensil. If you don't have one, grab one. And so I invite you all to just take a minute and write down the names of people who have passed. Write them down on your paper. Allow yourself to just be in that moment as you write. And then place them, if you feel called, onto the altar. Turn your candle on. And when you're ready, take your paper and place it somewhere onto the altar. Those of you who are at home, you can still light a candle. You can still write them down. You can still be part of this process in your own way. Just because you're not here doesn't mean that you can't. You could even put the names in the chat, and we're happy to put them on the altar here for you all. So feel free to do that. Those of you who may not want to get up now, you can do it after service. But I'm going to give you all a few minutes just to sort of be with that. The altar is there in the back. Light your candle. Put it there. Remember that all is good here. Everything that surfaces, everything that comes up is for our greatest and highest good. And as we have our final folks that are going to the altar, there's one last ritual that we're going to explore here today. You all remembered you said you were ready to be open, right? If, in fact, in doing this, we've created some kind of way as a community to lift and to feel and to know and to be, we have the opportunity, just like Coco in the movie, to create a healing for ourselves and even our ancestors and our future generations. So I'm going to invite you to do something really special today. I'm going to invite you first, and then I will give you instructions, to find someone that you don't know and pair with them. And I know some of you are like, oh God, I have to come to church to do this. Yes, you did. I I invite you to just get with somebody that you may not know or know really well. And I'm going to give you some instructions. I'm going to invite you to get with them in a pair. Don't do the unity thing like going for a hug or something if it's not appropriate. You all decide. It might be distant. Maybe you're going to choose in what we're going to do to hold hands, maybe not. You'll know between the two of y'all what you need to do. So I'm going to ask you all to get in pairs, and then I'm going to give you instruction from there. So those of you who are able to stand, please stand and move. But this is what we're going to do here today. So I invite you to just take a moment. Let's take a moment and take a deep breath into this. And after we say these words to each other, you will decide with your partner how what we call the touch and agree. That means how you're going to energetically connect with that person. Maybe it's an elbow, maybe it's a fist pump, maybe it's a hug. I don't know. That's up to y'all to decide. But there has to be a touch and agree when we're finished here. All right? So all you're doing is repeating what I say, and you're speaking the words to each other. Ready? Please forgive me. Please forgive me for anything I have thought, said, or done that may have hurt or diminished you or your relations in any way. Please forgive my ancestors for their mistakes, transgressions, and pains inflicted. I see you. I recognize you as a child of the Creator, made in the image and likeness of God. You are worthy of all honor and glory. Know you are deeply loved and appreciated. I send you forth today as the beginning of continual healing for you, your ancestors, and your future generations. All blocked, negative, genetic, energetic patterns are released and broken. In joy and gratitude, I accept this spiritual integration. We see and we are free. Touch and agree and have a seat. Today we start that journey or continue that journey or amplify that journey of transformation, of our own personal resurrection, of our own restoration, and dare I say the restoration of the world. It all begins right here, everyone. It all begins right here, everyone. It all begins right here as we learn and understand and be in one with the ways in which we can collectively heal and support each other on that journey. We no longer ascribe to this idea of the sins of the father, that we are cursed, that we have to be in the past. It doesn't mean we don't acknowledge it. It doesn't mean that we don't appreciate it. It doesn't mean that we don't honor it. It just means that we take what's there and also make sense of it and move on. So we move on today to something wondrous and glorious. Did anybody feel anything here today? I saw tears. I felt those tears. Those are real. Those are 100% real. I invite you all to think a mighty, mighty work has been done today. We don't know what that means. We don't know how. We don't know how it's going to show up in the world, but believe with every fiber of your being that this community right here and now has done something to change the world. Yes? Call me crazy, call me a witch, I'll take it. Somebody said to me the other day, and I appreciate it, they said, you're not a witch. I'd like to think of you as a switch. And I said, okay. They said, you're a switch. You turn on the light. Just put the S in front of it. I'll take that too. A switch. And with that said, and so it is, and so we let it be.